Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecini. We are presented by The Athletic. Today on the show, Adam Spinella is in the building. We are not going to talk about James Harden today.
No.
It's not happening. We finally got a day where we don't have to talk about James Harden because we have enough stuff happening around basketball that was worthwhile to discuss. First, we're going to talk about Team USA going 5-0 in their exhibition run. We're going to talk specifically about, I think, more the Spain and Germany games and talk a lot more about the Germany games or the Germany game than anything, because that occurred today. Got some really exciting things that happened throughout the course of that game and some things that I've kind of been told throughout the process about Team USA. I'm excited to dive deep into everything we have seen from them so far. Then we're going to talk about the 5 lottery teams in 2023 that we think will make the playoffs in 2024. I don't know about it, we think, but we think they have the best shot, right?
Best
Adam?
shot. Best shot is probably the best way to say it. I'd probably put money on 1 or 2 of them to make the playoffs, but five who have the best shot.
5 is aggressive, but I think they're at least, I think 3 of these teams will make the playoffs at least.
Okay.
Let's couch it there.
All right.
Finally, we're going to talk about TyTy Washington getting waived over the weekend by the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is a guy that came into the 2022 draft cycle as a lottery pick, struggled a bit at Kentucky with injuries and things, gets to Houston in the late first round, gets traded in order to create cap space. And we just want to talk about how things can just really come quickly for players in the draft, specifically certain players in the draft. And we want to dive deep into that a little bit. Adam, how's it going, man?
Sam, it's great, man. Life is good. It's August. I'm not working yet. Like, I got another week before I'm back to school full time. Like, I'm just kind of hanging out and watching a bunch of film and basketball. I did like 13 games of the Oklahoma Sooners over the weekend, which was super fun. Like, I'm just doing whatever the hell I want. It's awesome.
Yeah, you're diving deep into Milos Uzan and just really going for it. I love
him, by the way. Love him.
Really interesting player, guy that I had in my top 50. Like I'm very intrigued by Milos.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's start with Team USA. Team USA comes back to beat Germany after getting down 16 points in this game, Adam. I think that there's a lot of positive and a lot of negative. Let's start with the positives first and foremost. Anthony Edwards looks like the dude on this team. Yeah. Like unequivocally, he is the guy, it feels like. And Steve Kerr said as much after the game. Steve Kerr said, this is the guy. It's very clear he has emerged into being our go-to player. And I want to start there because I think that it's not surprising, and yet it is surprising on like a couple of levels. So there are just veteran players on this team, right? Brandon Ingram, Jalen Brunson. There are a number of players that theoretically could have taken over as this top option, this leading option. But instead, it's the guy entering his 4th season in the NBA, 22 years old, one of the younger guys on the team who we know has more talent than anybody on this team, certainly. Like just in terms of natural physical gifts, Anthony Edwards has as many of those as anybody in the NBA, essentially. The fact that he is doing this quickly in what amounts to a leadership role on Team USA with all of these dudes he's playing with, if I was a Timberwolves fan, I would be ecstatic right now about what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, he's been A1 since day one. There's no doubt about that. I've always loved Anthony Edwards, but this type of superstar turn to have the ball in your hands and be calling off all these other all-stars, it seems like it's happening maybe a little bit sooner than we expected. We all saw the potential and the ability for him to be that guy, but looking at this Team USA roster, he was kind of one of the younger guys out there. Would he really be able to step up into that role right away? And unequivocally he has, and he's not just done it by being an offensive creator, a guy who wants to go one-on-one and can score, has all these great athletic moments. He's been defending pretty impressively too. And that, I think that matters as well. Like the two-way play, and particularly with Steve Kerr, when you're playing with other great NBA stars, if you put that effort in on the defensive end, you will get a longer leash to play your game on offense.
I mean, he took on the Franz Wagner assignment in the entirety of like the late game there, in the Germany game, and was enormous. Like he really made life exceptionally hard for Franz Wagner. I think that he deserves so much credit for that side of the floor as much as anything. There are still like off ball lapses, like there are still things that he does, but on the ball, that dude is a monster on defense.
Yeah.
Like he really is turning into a monster on defense. It's funny, like I don't want to like overvalue some of this stuff with Ant, but like with Ant, you look at some of the stuff he's done in his career, like off the court, like the funny clips that you see of him where he's just like unabashedly himself, right? And like weirdly, do you know the thing that like kind of made me buy into him more?
What's that?
The movie that he was in with Adam Sandler.
Yeah, he was cold.
Like to be so comfortable in your own skin as to have never acted before, and then to be able to give like an incredible performance. He's like, seriously, he is, other than Adam Sandler, the best performance in that movie. Truly.
Yeah.
It's the confidence, like everything. Like he's just a natural dude on camera, clearly with other people. It sounds ridiculous. I get it. It sounds really stupid to say that something like that matters, but it does. It just goes to showcase just how entirely comfortable this dude is in his own skin as a human being, being unabashedly himself. And that translates to leadership and being like the guy, I think, on a team. So yeah, I have every single amount of confidence in him. And I think Seasons and Sloan brings up a great point. It's the confidence. Like he just has this natural confidence about him that I think lends people to wanting to like be around him. And I think also lends itself to being the guy on a team like this, where he can emerge into being the best player. Cause like, look, I don't want, all NBA players are incredibly confident. Like we need to say that, but like Brandon Ingram is like a low key guy, right? He's not like a rock the boat guy. Tyrese Halliburton plays like a very unselfish brand of basketball. Jalen Brunson plays this unselfish brand of basketball, right? A lot of the older guys, Mikal Bridges plays an unselfish brand of basketball. So a lot of these guys, I think, they're the kind of players that it makes sense for Anthony Edwards to be the dude. Yes. You know what I mean? To emerge here and be this guy. And I'm excited to see where it goes in the World Cup. Like this could be like people remember like the Zach LaVine, Devin Booker, like I can't remember. I think that was the Olympics, wasn't it? Where like those guys kind of really emerged and became real dudes in the league. I think Ant might do that in this tournament to an even greater degree than LaVine. Maybe not quite to like Devin Booker's level, whatever. Devin like immediately emerged into like a top 10 player in the league. But man, I don't know. He's going to be interesting.
He's got it. And I love the term confidence here, because a lot of times when you find a confident player, that can be to their detriment at times. They take some shots that they shouldn't. Or to me, the difference between having an endearing amount of confidence is how authentic it is. If people really see that that's who you are off the floor, you've got to own sort of the negative stuff that comes with it. And Ant seems very comfortable in owning that stuff, not letting it bother him. Like he's cool taking the last shot. If it means he's going to miss it, he'll go out there and he'll own that. But you've got to want that moment and be super comfortable with that. So I think this has been nothing but a positive few games here for Timberwolves fans to look at Anthony Edwards and see, man, the sky is really not just the limit for him, but he's getting closer to reaching it.
Yeah, to quote Michael Jordan, the ceiling is through the roof. The interesting piece of this now for Team USA is like, I think they're still trying to work through their rotation a little bit. Like, I don't know if they have it yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
It feels like, to me, at least, they don't have a great answer in terms of their big rotation yet. Jaren Jackson's been phenomenal. I think Jaren Jackson has probably been their second most consistent player behind Ant. I think you can make a case for him, for Brunson, for Halliburton, honestly, for Austin Reaves. Like, I think that a lot of these guys have been really, really good. I think Jaren's probably been the number 2 guy for me just because of the defensive ability that he brings, but he's not going to play more than 28 minutes a game probably in this thing. And it feels like they don't have an answer in terms of the backup bigs. Bobby Portis and Paulo, I think, have really struggled defensively. And it feels like Steve Kerr still hasn't quite figured out the scheme to run defensively when those guys are in. He tried a lot of drop today against Germany, and Dennis Schroeder just absolutely eviscerated them, like completely destroyed them. He had 16 points and 10 assists, but like it was getting penetration every single time, kick out, reversal up to the top of the wing, getting all kind of hockey assists. They have to figure out what they do when Jaren Jackson is off the court defensively. I don't think they have a great answer there yet. There were some moments I thought Paulo did okay switching a little bit more, playing the 5. I think that might be more what I would go down the road of if I was USA. But like the drop with Portis and Paulo, or like any sort of like show and recover kind of strategy, it felt like did not work at all against Germany. And I'm a little bit worried about what they do in terms of the backup center position defensively.
Yeah, and I think there are other smaller areas that they've got to be aware of. Like, Germany had some success with some full court pressure and trying to slow down the clock and the amount of time that USA would have on offense. Some of the zone stuff kind of worked well, toggling between defenses. And I think Jaren was a little bit too pinned to the baseline today in that Germany game against the zone, not trying to flash or play make from the high post in different areas. Like, they've got to find the right team balance for how they want to break down some of those things. So we could see a couple other close games, but like the overwhelming talent that this USA roster has is still apparent. And if they can find those tweaks in the moments when Jackson's off the floor, I think they're going to be just too good to pass up on.
Yeah, and like Luke B asks, like who will realistically punish them if they don't play any typical centers? Not a ton of scary 5 men this year. I mean, look, I thought Daniel Tice did a pretty good job of like hitting them in ball screens. To me, it's not about the bigs in terms of like post defense. It's about the space defense against these European teams that will put those bigs out in space and force them to guard ball screens. That's what I would be most concerned about if I was a USA coaching staff member. Now, the next piece of this for me is I'm really intrigued to see how the rotation shakes out, because I feel like offensively, the issues for them at times have been the stagnation, the like ability to just not have any ball movement and to kind of go one-on-one and like rely on Brandon Ingram to drive, rely on Jalen Brunson to drive. I think that they have looked drastically better when Tyrese Halliburton and Austin Reaves are on the court. Like purely full stop. I think Halliburton has probably been their 3rd best player behind Jaren Jackson and Ant. And then like, I really think there's a case that like Austin Reaves just needs to play as many minutes as kind of possible. Him and Bridges as well. Like Bridges is huge for them defensively just because of the like on-ball defense. He's going to knock down corner threes. You have to stay attached to him. He creates space for everybody. But Reeves' like unselfishness, his ball movement, his just consistent willingness to not be afraid of the moment, the fact that he chases over everything and works hard defensively, it's the well-roundedness of his game that allows him to complement literally everybody else on the court. And this is why he was so good for the Lakers, obviously, as well. But like, I kind of think he needs to play like in closing minutes. Like, I kind of think their closing lineup is something like Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, Austin Reaves, Mikal Bridges, Jaren Jackson is kind of what my immediate reaction is. If a team's a little bit bigger, you can maybe go like Brandon Ingram instead of Reaves. But like, I don't know. I think that I kind of think they need Austin Reaves on the court a lot.
Floor spacing is important in international competition and in games like this. And Reaves and Bridges are both guys who will move the ball and make unselfish plays while also knocking down the appropriate shots. I mean, Bridges' defense in the Germany game in the second half was huge. So let's be clear on that. Like he definitely deserves to be part of that 7 or 8 man rotation. However, Kerr decides, however he decides to slice it. But it is going to be a little bit matchup dependent, and I think that's where you look at the roster needing to figure out how it's going to play in bigger lineups and smaller lineups with Paolo or Portis at the 5, with Jackson at the 5. That's what the exhibition games are for. As a coach, you want to trot out all these different types of rotations, see how guys react, and what buttons you need to press when the games really matter a ton. So again, there's a lot that they can learn from something like this and continue to tweak and improve. But I tend to agree, like those ball movers and those guys who are really aware of their role, they're incredibly important on this Team USA group, because we've seen it before, like year after year, when you put all these stars together, the ball can stick. And Halliburton and Reaves are two of the better guys out there at just moving it around and letting the ball determine who the right guy is to score in that possession.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Look, Halliburton has been, you can probably make it work with one of Halliburton or Reaves in the right matchup, depending on, how stagnant the offense gets, what kind of defensive capabilities you need on the court. If you need both Bridges and Ingram's length out there to kind of shut down passing lanes, okay, whatever. But man, I think that Halliburton has been awesome. And look, like we're probably underrating Brunson here too. Brunson was enormous against Spain. Yep. Like Brunson had 23 against Spain. He was huge. Brunson will play a ton of minutes. He's starting for them right now. Like Brunson has been pretty good. I didn't think he was particularly good today, but like Brunson has been plenty good. It's just that Halliburton has brought it every single game to this point, to where I kind of think he has to be the guy next to Ant in the backcourt. Like if I was them, I would probably be starting Ant, Halliburton. I guess I would start Bridges, Ingram, and Jaren, and then you'd have the one big off the bench in Portis, Paulo, or maybe even Kessler, depending on if you can really drop and force a team into tougher spots, depending situationally, of course. And then it's, Reaves and Brunson is like your sixth and seventh men, I guess. And that's your rotation, I think.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I love the way that Halliburton and Ant really counterbalance each other in terms of their creation, their ability to shoot and play off of each other. Like I think those two need to be sharing the court with each other as much as possible.
Yeah. And the final thing I want to note here is we talked throughout free agency about the Spurs and the fact that they should have given Austin Reaves real money. Austin Reaves is a free agent. Austin Reaves got 4 years, 54 million, something like that, because that's what he was Arenas limited at. He has a player option. He'll be a free agent in 3 and he'll get paid then. But like Bill Simmons tweeted about this earlier, like the Spurs decision to not pay Austin Reaves continues to look silly. Totally agree.
Yes.
They should have paid Austin Reaves. This was never, I don't know why they didn't. Like, if you're the Spurs, why don't you offer Austin Reaves something like 3 years, 60 million, team option on the 3rd year, make it as miserable as possible for the Lakers to match. And that seems like the right call to me, at least.
Yeah.
Make it as hard as possible for the Lakers to match. And oh, by the way, your worst case scenario is you piss off the Lakers. You probably don't care about that. You make a good relationship with his agent, having handled this entire thing. That, is a great example of this is the Gordon Hayward offer sheet many years ago from the Hornets to Utah. Utah ends up matching. Eventually, Hayward signs in Boston, and then the next place that Hayward signs is Charlotte, right? So to me, you get him out of LA a year early, you set him up for unrestricted free agency, you create a positive situation with your agent, and look, the Lakers probably do match. I agree, but what were the Spurs doing anyway?
Yes.
They took on the Chetty Osman money, they took on the campaign money. They took on like a little bit of money here and there in order to get like second round picks. They didn't really get any real difference makers or anything like that. And the campaign stuff would have been like, you could have done that later in the offseason, or like you could have done something with the Thunder later in the offseason with their roster glut. Like there are a bunch of teams out there that have these roster gluts right now. The Wizards are another one, right?
Yep.
So you could have just done this and you could have continued then after the Lakers match, if you think they match, or you could have maxed them. You could have gone for 100 or whatever it was and really forced the Lakers' hand. But like, I just don't. Yeah, the money was. Teams are always going to want to dump salary. If you feel like you need to have some cap space to be able to take on some assets to dump salary, I just think that Reaves was the guy. He fits their age timeline. He fits their unselfish culture that they've built under Greg Popovich. Like,
he would have been perfect next to Wembanyama developmentally in the long term as soon as they get good. Like their skill sets and the way that they would play perfectly complement each other. I think it would have been great. And Sam, you and I were talking about this a little bit off air. Like when you are a team that hasn't been very good and you have a lot of cap space, what do you do with it? Is the best thing to maybe take the San Antonio approach, which is try to accumulate a few more future assets, some draft picks, maybe some flexible contracts you can move down the line, and view yourself as a kind of a salary off put for a bunch of teams around the league that are desperately going to need space in July. That's one option. And that's certainly the one that the Spurs took. And time will tell if that was the right move or the wrong move. You could do maybe what a Houston has done and just go out there and spend a lot of money and overpay for a bunch of veterans to try to come on a younger team and help turn things around. Or Indiana with Bruce Brown, like go overpay for a couple of years for a guy so that he comes with you and hope that he's the right piece to help you continue to develop. I think it's really fascinating the different tracks all those teams took this July.
Yeah, and another option there, as Luke says in the comments, like renegotiations and extensions.
Yep.
They don't really have anyone like that. Like Keldon Johnson just signed his extension. He's locked up. You don't need to renegotiate and extend Devin Vassell because he's still on a rookie scale deal. They've just extended Trey Jones to the contract they wanted to give Trey Jones. They don't have anybody that they're looking to do that with in order to hoard their cap space either. So to me, like, I think teams like overvalue the ability to rent out their cap space unless they're getting like premium picks. The level to which like guys that are difference makers, and I think Austin Reaves is probably like a difference maker in the NBA right now, like might be like a top 60 player in the league. Like the level to which he is a difference maker for you on the court is just the level to which that is more valuable than second round picks. Even if it's a 10% chance you get them and the Lakers don't match, you still do that. And then you like down the road, rent out your cap space.
Then you can pivot to the Chetty Osmans and the campaigns of the world. And I know like Supreme Court has had a lot of stuff to do with campaign finance the last few years. That's my shitty dad joke for the day. But like, yes, go the Austin Reaves route first. You can always double back around, and particularly early in free agency. Like you should know this is what you want to hit. The Lakers only have 48 hours to match something like that.
Yep.
And if they don't, or sorry,
so
if
it's
they do,
24 now, but like the way it works practically now is you have the moratorium. When someone hits restricted free agency, you can offer them an offer sheet, but they can't match it during the moratorium.
Right.
You have to wait 24 hours after the moratorium ends.
Yep.
So, it could have been anywhere from 5 days they would have had to match to 24 hours if they would have waited until after the moratorium ended. If you wait until after the moratorium ends, the Osman deal probably isn't there because it felt like the Cavs were really trying to clear out some space specifically for Max Strus and getting that deal done, I think on the second day of free agency. So, you would have lost out on that, but like, I don't know. I would have, if you have even a 5% chance to convince Reaves to go, or if you think that by doing this, you can get Reaves out of LA earlier and thus get him to San Antonio in 2 years instead of 3, then yeah, I don't know.
But I mean,
And
the Chetty Osman deal, like they got him, Lamar Stevens, and a 2030 second round pick. Like, is
yeah.
that really what we're saying is so urgent that we can't wait for Austin Reaves on?
Well, and Jake Slack asks in the YouTube comments, a fair question. Are we sure Reaves wanted to sign in San Antonio? Takes 2 to tango. Look, I don't know this. I'm not going to sit here and say that like I know what's going on with Austin Reaves. If the Spurs would have offered him a 4-year, $100 million contract as opposed to a 4-year, $54 million contract, which by the way, the Lakers could have matched anyway, the 4-year 100 or 4, it would have been 97, I think is the actual number. Yeah. Cannot imagine a world where he does not sign in San Antonio. Put it this way. If they offer him 360, which is the offer that I just, laid out, right? You offer him 360, then that's more than he's going to make in 4 years, and he's getting it in 3. That offsets the amount of money that he could make in terms of like sponsorships and things like that in LA. And I think Dre is 100% right. LA is a big market. He likes LA. It seems like he does. I think that's 100% accurate. But like, I don't know, money talks, I think. Yeah. And the Spurs had enough money to make it talk in this circumstance. And I think they probably should have. So yeah, it's interesting.
And it's different.
The other piece of it too, I'm sorry, is Cosmo brings up he would have been the number 1 and number 2 option and had a chance to get his max deal after this deal because of the way his contract would have been structured at that point with the big $35 million balloon payment in the last year. It would have been so easy to extend at a higher number off of this, or if they would have flattened it out at 2020 or whatever it would have been, you could have gone 140% off of 20, which would be a $28 million starting salary next time if you wanted to extend. So yeah, I just don't see I don't see why they didn't do this. I don't see why they didn't go for it.
And for Reaves, like it's different if we're talking about a veteran who's already made a bunch of millions of dollars in the league. Like this is a guy not coming off of a lucrative contract that he signed with the Lakers right out of the gate. This is his chance to get paid. Like the difference between 4 years, 97 million and what he just signed with the Lakers is astronomical for a guy in his position.
Mm-hmm. I think that's right. Okay, let's take a quick commercial break, and then we will move to the teams that we think will make the playoffs after being in the lottery. Okay, Adam, are you ready to do this? We picked 5 teams that we think were in the 2023 lottery that will make the 2024 playoffs. Now, the way we structured this was there is one team that we both just categorically agreed on, and that team is probably a bit obvious. And then I picked 2, and then Adam picked 2. That was the idea here. And we'll call out who picked what teams throughout. Let's start with the team we both agreed on.
Yep.
And that is the Dallas Mavericks. I think the Dallas Mavericks are going to make the playoffs this year. I think they are the team that I feel most confident in. I do want to talk about some of the ways this could go wrong a little bit as well, but let's talk about the ways that it will go right. The first way is Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is really good at basketball. That's why.
Yeah, that's a pretty compelling argument you make there. And despite all of the changes on their roster personnel-wise last year, they were knocking on the door of the play-in and the playoffs leading into the final week. And for what it's worth, like hindsight, always 2020, definitely looks like the right move on their part to get that draft pick this year and then maneuver it down the board for all the assets the way that they did. I thought it was a fantastic summer for them in kind of retooling the type of players you need to surround Luka Doncic with. But at the end of the day, having Luka Doncic on your roster is far and away step 1 to becoming a 45 and above win team.
So a few other reasons why I feel pretty good about this, right? So first, we're going to get a full year of Luka and Kyrie, and I would hope that they will develop some chemistry together. in terms of the way that they work on and off ball. Kyrie will play a little bit more off the ball. We're probably going to see a little bit more of a similar Kyrie to what we saw with the Cavs, I would think, next to LeBron, just in terms of this dude can just go out and score now. Like, he doesn't have to worry about playmaking. He doesn't have to worry about anything that comes with that. He'll be asked to do it specifically in bench units. But oh, by the way, bench units have been the substantial, significant problem there in Dallas when Luka leaves the court. You now have the ability to leave Kyrie on the court. You can stagger these guys and really minimize the amount of time where you don't have an elite creator on the court. In Dallas, I think that is, for the regular season and for racking up wins, just an enormous reason why the Mavericks will be better next season than what they were this year.
Yeah, and that tandem over the course of 82 games has the potential to be absolutely lethal in ways that we didn't even get to see fully tapped into. I mean, I always try to bring up the point that anytime you acquire a player in the middle of the season, you don't have times to really switch up a ton of your schematics to try to make things work. That, sometime in the off season and training camp doesn't just help your players gel. It helps you restructure your schematics, your offensive and defensive playbooks to maximize the best players that you have.
Yep. Couple other things worth noting. Maxi Kleba only played 37 games last season. Maxi is a little bit older. Like, he'll be 32 next season. But Maxi is a really important player for them defensively. Getting him back for a full season, I think, is going to be really, really important. Obviously, as well, the emergence of Josh Green over the course of the back half of the season, I thought was critical for them. Him being able to take on that 3 role, being able to run in transition with Kyrie, who does like to push the pace a little bit. Kind of a perfect player, I think, as long as the shooting continues to hold up, to place next to Luka and Kyrie. The other piece of this here is that I just think they've done a really good job in general of kind of rounding out the 2 spots that they needed in the 4 and the 5. Like, I imagine Grant Williams is probably going to start at the 4 now.
Yep.
Grant's just a really smart player. Grant, I think particularly what I like is that he's going to be able to relieve some pressure in short roll settings. He hasn't done a crazy amount of that in Boston necessarily, but I think he has the ability to do that. You have Grant come up and set screens, or you have someone like Rashawn Holmes or whoever's going to play center come up and start screens or come up and set screens. And then if they put 2 on the ball, Grant is going to be able to be that screen setter, and you can relieve the pressure by putting him in the middle of the court, letting him make decisions. He's a really smart passer, really sharp processor of the game. I think he can do that. And then defensively, he's very useful. He's a versatile player who can take on tough assignments, and just having that to replace what they lose in Dorian Finney-Smith. He's not as good as Dorian Finney-Smith is defensively, but I think that it's going to be really, really critical for them to be able to have somebody like Grant out there to take on those tough assignments.
Yeah, and then the way that the Mavericks have run their offense in the past with Luka Doncic is they do a lot of mismatch hunting. They bring up whoever has the worst defender or the targeted defender that Dallas wants to get switched onto Luka. Whoever he's initially guarding just comes up and sets that high ball screen. So the more guys you can put in that spot who are wing-ish guys who can both shoot and make the right decision in a split second if they catch the ball and are left open as Luka commands too, the better off Dallas is going to be. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. is like a little bit underrated in that regard because he is a shooting threat and what he can do in some of those actions. But Grant Williams playmaking, whether it's the short roll or in like pick and pop, and then you've got a second or two to just make the right play to sustain the advantage that's created. He's a really smart addition to this team on the offensive end, but they really desperately needed more wing and like front court defense. And Grant is going to fill that role that Dorian Finney-Smith left behind. He's not quite as good and energetic in a lot of different ways that Dorian Finney-Smith is, but it was important for them to have somebody who's at least competent within that role. And then they've got a litany of big men who can go out there. And I'm really fascinated to see how that rotation is going to sort itself out throughout the year.
Yeah, great question from Connor Andrews in the YouTube comments. Where do you think they'll rank defensively this year?
20.
Yeah, not much of a jump in terms of rankings, but I think that they should be a top 5 offense. Like, I think that, them dropping to 6th was actually like a real interesting thing that has occurred. Like, I know that's actually a little bit better than what they've ranked over the course of the last couple years. First year with Jason Kidd, last year with Rick Carlisle, but I felt like it was still not quite there in terms of like the blend of how things like really, really worked well. Like I think that if they are, top 5 offense and they're the 20th defense, it's probably like a +2 net rating, something like that. And that should get you into the playoffs.
I mean, yeah, we're talking about it here. 16 teams end up making the playoffs, Sam. Like it's not an incredibly high bar to clear on the defensive end when you have as theoretically great of an offense as Dallas has.
The other side of this is how this could go wrong. And I think that there are 2 ways. First, well, maybe 3. The first one is that Luka could get hurt, right? If Luka gets hurt, this is not a playoff team. This is nowhere near a playoff team, right? Luka does consistently miss like 15 games a year, something like that. Them being able to stem the tide with Kyrie now in the 15 games that Luka misses is really big. If they play games without Luka or Kyrie, that will be a problem for them. 2, typically the first year with Kyrie is fine. Like, typically that is not a problem. Kyrie is a wild card. I think he'll be good this year. I see no reason to believe otherwise, given his track record. The track record is that there are not problems in the first year. So that piece of it is good. The third is that the center position is still an open question. They drafted Derek Lively. I think Lively probably is not going to be able to play big minutes this year, basically. Maybe by the end of the year, he might be able to get like 10 to 15 a game, but I would be surprised. So they need to figure out Richaun Holmes. If he can play still, that's a real question. He was going through a number of different issues in Sacramento. And then additionally got hurt. So it's unclear. And then the system changed and everything. Right. I don't know what Richaun Holmes has or doesn't have at this point. He might still be quite good, but I'm not sure now that things seem to be behind him in terms of the custody battles with his ex-partner and everything like that. They also have Dwight Powell. Dwight Powell, I guess, provides reasonable depth. JaVale did not look like he had a whole lot left, to be honest, when we saw him. Can they get anything from Omax? We will see. I hope so. But that's how. Like, the depth could be an issue here in general. The fourth part is, like, this could fall apart under Jason Kidd. And Jason Kidd is not, like, an awesome player.
There are a lot of ways that things can get off the rails, right? Injuries, guys not becoming happy. They've got young players on their roster who they may need to rely on for at least some minutes during the regular season, not necessarily major crucial roles, but like Lively and Prosper. Jaden Hardy's still really, really young. Like there are younger guys that might need to step up and do something for them. But I keep going back to the idea that when you have 2 of the most talented players in the world, at least through the regular season, we're talking here about getting to the playoffs, not necessarily thriving once you get there. That's a pretty good indicator that you're going to be in the 40 to 45 win ballpark at the least.
Yeah, I think I called Jason Kidd a player and not a coach. I meant like as a player in this entire scheme here. But,
I got you.
Yeah, we will see. I'll let you. I led the Dallas discussion there, but I think Dallas will be in I think Dallas will be in the final 8 at the very least, because in a play-in type setting, if they do only end up in the play-in, there is probably not a player I trust in a play-in setting more than Luka. Like guys like Tatum, Giannis, Jokic, they aren't going to be there. Steph is not going to be there in a play-in setting in all likelihood. There's probably not anyone I would trust more than Luka in such a setting.
Totally agree with that.
Okay. I will give you the floor. Adam, who is your team that you want to start with here?
Yeah. So in doing this assignment and thinking about this, I wanted to look to the Eastern Conference because the West is an absolute bloodbath. I know a lot of people are saying it in the comments right now. Don't worry, guys. Like, we planned for this. The West has a lot of teams that are going to stay good who made the playoffs last year. So I immediately went and focused on the East. And as I'm looking for teams there, like there is one that really stood out to me as having a guy who is just an absolute superstar that we don't talk about enough. And when he is in the lineup, his team's actually already pretty damn good. It's Tyrese Halliburton with the Indiana Pacers. I would be very high on the Pacers actually making the playoffs next year. He averaged 21 and 10 last year on 49, 40, and 87 shooting splits. It's absolutely effing ridiculous what he was able to accomplish. He might just be the best passer in the game of basketball today, too. And man, they were 28 and 28 with him in the lineup last year.
Yeah.
And that's enough to get them in the play-in on its own. He got hurt, and there was some stuff going on down to the stretch run of the season where they decided to kind of shut things down. But this is an already like competent group with Tyrese Halliburton at the helm. They've got an experienced coach in Rick Carlisle, one of the best rim protectors in the NBA, and a guy like Miles Turner, who averaged 18 on offense while shooting 37% from three. And they keep the formula simple. They've got a Halliburton who is this galaxy brain creator and unbelievable playmaker. They've got another guy in Nembhard who I think doesn't get talked about enough as being just a savvy, always ready pick and roll creator. And then they space the floor with a ton of shooters. Aaron Nesmith, Buddy Hield. We forget about Buddy Hield and how prolific of a three-point shooter he is. And not just currently, but in like the annals of league history. What he's been able to accomplish from a volume perspective is ridiculous. I love the addition of Bruce Brown just as a winning piece, that connective glue defensive type. Jarris Walker, if he's ready to start or at least play minutes in an important way from day one, has that similar type of DNA. Another step forward from Benedict Mathurin in year two. There's a lot of upside potential here, while I'm also looking at this team. Like if Halliburton plays 75 games or more, like they're at least going to win 37, 38 of them.
So, yeah, I particularly really like what they did in order to maximize the talent they have with their additions this offseason.
Yep.
The Bruce Brown signing, I think, is like genuinely brilliant. Going out and getting Bruce Brown, because the thing that you can do to Halliburton still, I think, a little bit is blitz him. I think that if you put two on the ball, there are times where he will pick it up. And while he has incredible vision, and his handle has improved at a very real level, he also is somebody that really needs an outlet option, I think, in short roll settings or like a pick and pop option. And he has the pick and pop option in Turner, but he didn't really have like the short roll, like passing playmaking guy. They actually went out and got two of them. Like Bruce Brown is like the guy that can really do it. Like Bruce Brown is incredible in these short roll settings, playing him as like a pseudo four. The other guys like Jarris Walker, I think Jarris is going to be able to play 15 minutes a night, 20 minutes a night pretty early, given the defensive ability, given the short roll passing, the playmaking that he has. I think he's going to be really valuable for them in those settings. They went out and they accentuated. This was a great offense already with Tyrese Halliburton on the court. They went out and they got two guys that I think will go make that offense even better. And on top of it, they also went out and got Obi Toppin, who, yes, he does not help them on the defensive end of the court, but the thing that Halliburton really likes to do is run.
Yep.
And Obi will run with him. Obi will go. And on top of it, the other thing that you can do is you can play Obi and Jarris together. And I think that that could give you the kind of like 4-5 combination of needing the rim protection from Jarris, needing the pick and roll ability that Obi Toppin didn't really get a chance to showcase with the Knicks, but that we know has an immense amount of potential to pay dividends within. I love how they went about accentuating the things that they did great while also improving the things that they did poorly. And this is before even talking about the defensive side of the court, where they were 26th in the NBA last season and were like a total dumpster fire.
And that's where the Bruce Brown signing is so important to me, because when I looked at this Pacers roster a year ago, I'm thinking, who is going to handle that top defensive assignment when they go into 25 of their 29 opponents' gyms and arenas there, they're going to have to guard a high level scorer or playmaker somewhere on the 1 through 3, maybe 1 through 4 range. They didn't really have a guy who can slide in and do that. I think Halliburton, with his length and off-ball IQ, is smart enough to be versatile and slide in different positions, but you don't want him playing that type of role. You want him more as an off-ball defender to save his energy, to use his IQ in those ways. Bruce Brown checks all of those boxes in a meaningful way. And if it's somebody who's a little bit bigger and you need to just guard that with more beef, like that's where Jarris Walker comes in and is really, really strong. I have very high hopes that he is going to break the Rick Carlisle mold and be a rookie that continues to contribute right away. We've seen this Pacers team in particular have quite a few of them, just smart, high IQ young guys who know their role. Jarris Walker is that down to a T. I absolutely loved him as a prospect, but his fit in Indiana is so damn perfect on both ends of the floor. Like, I am really excited about this group.
Yeah, and look, like some of the other guys they have like should improve. I mean, like Ben Mathurin should improve, right? And Andrew Nemhard was a rookie last year and was super valuable. He should get better in year 2, you would think. This is a deep team now. They have real talent that I think can make them better. Again, if this team finishes 20th in the league defensively as opposed to 26th this year, which, you know, honestly, I would still expect them to be a below average defense. Just that's the reality of where they are. But if they can get to 20th, I mean, last year, do you know what the Pacers offensive rating was when Tyrese Halliburton was on the court, Adam?
No idea.
When Tyrese Halliburton was on the court, the Indiana Pacers had a 118.8 offensive rating. That is an insane number. That is a ridiculous, like out of this world number in terms of offensive rating. That is like basically Sacramento Kings last year that set the record for offensive rating, like number, basically. So Halliburton's a great point guard, a really, really good player. And he just needed help on the margins, I think, to make this work. And I think that I think the Pacers did a really good job of doing that. And then on top of it, let's just be honest about the East as well.
Yep.
It's easier to find playoff spots in the East. The Nets were, frankly, kind of a disaster after their moves to trade Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. This was not a team that was a playoff team at the end of the day. The Hawks are a question mark. Like, you know, you want to talk about the Hawks at some point. We will talk about the Hawks at some point on the show, but like the Hawks are a bit of an open question. The Raptors are a bit of an open question, I think. The Bulls are certainly an open question at this point. It's a little bit easier, I think, to find the playoff slots in the East than it is in the West right now.
Totally agree. Indiana, I mean, there are some young teams in the East that could all make this type of leap, and we may talk about one a little bit later, but I think the Pacers are just a half step farther along than everybody else right now in terms of the development, the cohesion, having that established number 1 star, a veteran number 2 in Miles Turner. By the way, Buddy Hield, 42.5% from 3 on over 8 attempts a game. Like, I still don't think we talk about how important of a player Buddy Hield can be if you want to build a lethal offense.
I think that's right. Okay, let's get to my first team here. The Oklahoma City Thunder, which is a team that I just love, and people know that I love them, and I'm a mark for them, and it's whatever. They won 40 games last season. This is a team that is just going to keep getting better. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander keeps getting better every year. Like, I don't know how much more room there is for him to get better necessarily at this point, because my God, like how can this guy keep doing it? Yeah. But he is a player that consistently works hard, that consistently improves his craft. If he improves at all, and he showed real growth defensively last year as well, if he continues to show real growth on that end, continues to show real growth as a passer and playmaker, I mean, my God, like he's going to be a well-rounded, complete offensive force at that point. That is going to be really, really hard to stop. Josh Giddey, if anybody has watched the Australian national team this summer, looks like he is getting better and is continuing to take a leap, right? Jalen Williams, anybody that saw him at Summer League, anybody that just sees the physical transformation he is making, this dude is a physical monster. He is 6'6". He is 7'2" wingspan. Like, he just makes everything happen for them. He's a good defender. He is an awesome ball handler and playmaker. He can get out and transition. He's one of the best finishers at the basket in the league. He is going to get better in year 2. Again, this is a guy that has gotten better every year for the last 5 years of his career. He's going to get better. The fourth guy here is Chet Holmgren.
Yeah.
Chet's going to be a big difference for this team. They finished in the top 15 in the NBA last season in defense, despite the fact that they didn't really have a backline rim protector. Like, all due respect to Jalen Williams, who I think does a good job, does a better job than what the numbers would indicate, maybe is the way to put it,
sure,
in terms of his overall rim protection. Because when you account for the charges, those are turnovers. Those are essentially stops at the rim. If you account for those, he's actually really, really good.
Yep.
In terms of making it harder for guys to get good, easy looks at the basket. Now you add Chet, who I think they will play at the 5. Like, you ask in our document here, will he play the 4 or the 5? They will play him at the 5. The reason I say that, there are lineups where they will play him with Jalen Williams, I think, because they like the idea of, like, they might want to reduce the wear and tear on Chet at some point.
Yep.
But for the most part, they're going to play him at the 5 because they like the ability to have 5 men who can grab and go, who can play with the ball in their hands, who can shoot, who can space the court. They're going to do all of that. So you bring this guy in now, who I think is going to be ready to play from the jump. Like, I don't know if he's going to be, the rookie of the year in the league. I don't know if he's going to be, a top 50 player in the league or anything, but he's going to be a starting quality center from day one in the NBA. Like, that is where I'm at on Chet. I think he averages something like 14 points, 10 rebounds. If he plays 30 minutes a night, I think he might average like 2.5 blocks per game.
Yeah.
And he's going to shoot threes. He's going to finish at the rim. He's going to be switchable on defense. He's also going to be able to play and drop at a super high level on defense. They're going to be versatile. They're going to be more versatile than they were defensively last year. This is a team that's going to be better. I get it that, like, there are a limited number of playoff spots in the league, but, like, they're going to be better. They're going to be great this year. I think they're going to win 44 or 45 games, I think.
So you and I have both gushed about the roster construction, the long-term planning in Oklahoma City. How many of these guys have turned into hits for their roster? Like, they are literally overflowing with young talent where they're waiving guys, and that'll be part of the conversation we get to later. But, like, there is so much young talent on this roster. If only half of them get better this offseason, the Thunder are still going to be leaps and bounds better. So, like, we haven't even talked about Ousmane Dieng, who, like, showed some interesting flashes this year. Like, if he can just be a ninth guy for them, what an intriguing and fun piece he ends up being connectively on the wing. His defensive ceiling is through the roof because of his length and kind of versatility in that regard. This is going to be a fun group. I am not being a pessimist in any type of way here. I think that the depth of the Western Conference makes adding wins just that much more difficult for a team like Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
But I wonder about the whole Chet Holmgren at the 5 versus Chet Holmgren at the 4 conversation, not as much as in what's going to be the best comparative advantage for Oklahoma City than having their 5 best guys on the floor, right? Like, it's Giddey, Shea, Dort, Jalen Williams, and Chet. That's, to me, their best 5. But it's a lot to ask a rookie to come in and really anchor a really solid defense on that end of the floor, particularly for a playoff team.
Here's what I would ask you. Are we sure that's their 5? Like, they can run out a number of different, they can play Kenrich Williams instead of Dort, right? And go bigger and get more physicality and get more, like, smart positional defense and rebounding out there. Like, Kenrich is really good. He missed 30 games last year. He's a really valuable player. They could play Isaiah Joe if they need more floor spacing, right? Like, this team is loaded just with guys. And then on top of it, They went out and got like one of the best players in EuroLeague in Vasily Mitsic. Like, my God, I don't know how they're going to get minutes for all these guys. And like, we haven't even mentioned Case and Wallace yet, who I think both of us think could at least defensively come in and play at the point of attack in a really valuable role for them early.
Yeah, he's Sam. This year, he's going to be just in Case and Wallace because they may not need him every night.
I was promised one dad joke, and you doubled up.
I did.
You doubled up, and I'm sure we're gonna get another one. So
I apologize.
I think that they're deeper, and I think that their internal growth is going to be real here. I think they win 45. Like I just kind of do. I don't think 5 wins more than what we saw last year is a big jump, and because they're so deep, they're going to be more capable of withstanding injuries outside of Shea than what other teams are, frankly. So, yeah, this is good.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say with that, the way that they compete and just play their hardest every single night and play together, that has regular season value. They're going to sneak up on a lot of different teams. Just somebody's having a bad day and OKC punishes you for it. Like that's what they do. That is their cultural MO. And it matters for racking up those regular season wins. Very similar to what we've seen over the last half decade from those Memphis Grizzlies teams. Like their competitiveness and their togetherness throughout the regular season helps punch teams in the face.
I think that's right. Okay. You're up with number 4.
Yeah, number 4, I'm going back to the Eastern Conference here because that's where I see the opportunity really being for this. And I'm going out on a limb a little bit here and continuing to project some positive growth. This one might surprise some people, but it's a team that went 10-13 after the All-Star break and actually had a few pesky wins throughout the regular season. It's just about how quickly they find consistency with their group. It's the Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic. Sam, where do you have the Magic in the hierarchy of things here? Before I make the case for them, how are you looking at the Magic coming into this season?
I am looking at them as a very real play-in tournament team. I think that they have a very, very real chance to be in the play-in tournament. I think they're a bit of a level ahead of Detroit unless Cade goes like supernova. I think Chicago's hard because like I just don't know what their direction is going to be. It feels like they want to win, but like I mean, DeMar is an expiring deal. Like, do you just keep him the whole year? Like, if they don't keep DeMar, I would have Orlando ahead of them.
Yeah. Chicago and Toronto are both those kind of like there could still be a shoe to drop that you don't really know if you want to put all your eggs in their basket.
Yeah.
So that tends to lead me a little bit more towards Orlando. Like some of the teams that on paper to start the season I would have in front of them, the Chicagos and Torontos of the world. I think there's a case that Orlando is kind of ahead of them continuity wise if a certain few things happen. And
you brought up like the second half of the season numbers. Mm-hmm. And for me, it goes beyond that. Like it's just basically after the last 20 or the first 20 games of the season, they were really good last year.
Yes.
And there's a real reason for that. It's that Markelle Fultz came back.
Yeah.
As soon as Markelle got there and they had a real point guard, they went 29-31 in his games. Like they were quite good last year when Markelle was on the court because they were a little bit better defensively. They had somebody to set the table. And again, this is another team that should see some real internal growth from some of its players. Like Franz Wagner just fucking gave it to Team USA today, right? Like Franz is a stud. Paulo is going to keep getting better. Like he's not going to stagnate, I don't think. If Jalen Suggs continues to show growth, like that's a real factor here. And if he can stay healthy, like that really matters. I was talking about this with somebody, that works for an NBA team recently too. Is Wendell Carter like the most underrated player in the league?
He might be. He's really good.
He is somewhere between like the 10th and 13th best center in the league. Probably we decided 10th and 14, I think was like the number we got to. And it's just like the overall versatility of skill set
Yep.
that he brings to the table. He's really, really, really good.
Yep.
Like his ability to shoot from three, his ability to protect the rim, positionally, despite the fact that he's not some like crazy shot blocker, he's always there. Like he's always willing to contest.
Yep.
I just feel like positionally he's smart. Like he's always able to like run versatile schemes because he just knows where to be. That guy is so underrated.
He is, and it's the most ho-hum 15 and 10 and 2 that you'll ever see. Like he gets it night in and night out. He's a very good connective passer, spaces to the corners or to the top of the key. There's so many different things that you can do with a guy like Wendell Carter as your 5-man. You hit the nail on the head with the Fultz thing and just what having a competent playmaking guard in there really is. Jalen Suggs after February 10th, 37.5% from three on 4 attempts per game. Like if he can just be this kind of Marcus Smarty and Patrick Beverly, like 3-and-D, like backup guard or spot starter, that's going to be really, really important for the Magic as they kind of fill out this season. So I like the continuity that they have in this roster and the way that things are built. I'd love to see Anthony Black step in and be able to do something day one from a rookie. Everyone knows I'm really, really high on him. It feels like they're just one more like wing piece away from truly knocking on that door and being a 38-42 win team this year. And I wonder, like, is Jonathan Isaac ever going to be a guy that could do that for them? I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe, but like I guess like this is the other thing for me too. They had a lot of minutes from guys last year that were just not very good.
Yes.
Right. Yep. Like Bol played 1,500 minutes for them last year. And in the minutes that Bol played for them last year, they had a 109 offensive rating and a 114 defensive rating. Like they were really, really bad when Bol was on the court last year. You just look through these minute totals. Like Mo Bamba played 680 minutes. Chuma Okeke, who clearly wasn't right coming back from injury yet, played 500 minutes. Like even if he plays 750 healthy minutes, right? Like that will be valuable for them. Like replacing Terrence Ross with Joe Ingles, I think is probably an upgrade at the end of the day. Like getting somebody that just moves the ball and makes the right decisions and shoots, it probably helps them. Maybe Anthony Black gives them something as well, right? Caleb Houston played 800 minutes last year. Caleb Houston like shouldn't play this year, right?
Yep. RJ Hampton's gone. Yeah.
Like there's just a number of dudes that played a lot of minutes last year. They played, 800 minutes between RJ Hampton. They had 1,000 minutes of RJ Hampton, Goga Batadze, and Admiral Schofield last year. Like it's those minutes that you're replacing, I think, like getting, Mo Wagner into a, backup role to take on like the Bol minutes now. Maybe because Jonathan Isaac is healthy again, right? It's the fact that everybody kind of slides down a peg a little bit, I think. Like Jalen Suggs is now, not somebody that is going to have to play 30 minutes a night. Like he came pretty close to that last year. I think he was at like 27 a night. Maybe he does play 27 a night, but if he does, it's going to be because he earns it, not because he is like being asked to do it when he's still like kind of a negative offensive player. The reason Suggs is really good though is the defense. Like Brian Kay says Cole Anthony is better than Jalen Suggs right now. I don't think I agree. Like I think I would still take Suggs over Cole at this point, just because even right now, like Suggs' defense is really valuable. Suggs like is a huge factor in the fact that their defense, at times last year was pretty okay. And the fact they finished 16th defensively. The fact that Suggs is able to like guard on ball is such a menace off the ball. I think he's like kind of shaping up for like a Marcus Smart kind of career at this point. He's really, really valuable. I get that the numbers like don't indicate that he is some incredible player, but I think he is quite good. And Cole has really improved as well. Like I don't want to discredit Cole. No. Cole has really moved into being a great, I think, backup point guard in the league. The level to which he has improved, like he's not one of the guys where I'm like, oh, they're improving by bringing in Anthony Black. They're improving by bringing in other guys. I think Cole Anthony will continue to play for this team. Like he's still good enough to earn the minutes, and he's still good enough to play. But Anthony Black will push him, and Jalen Suggs will push him, and they still obviously have Markelle Fultz, who's going to be there. So yeah, this is a team that I think should show real substantial internal growth simply by getting fewer minutes from like intensely negative players.
Yeah, and the guys who they replace them with are either healthier, veterans and guys who they know that they need. I still think that Anthony Black can find a role to play to help you for some spot minutes as a rookie. And then like another guy we haven't really talked about here is Gary Harris, who started a lot of games for them at the 2. And like, this is a very good veteran stabilizing piece for them in the backcourt. Like I just like what I saw every time I watched the Magic play last year. If they can stay healthy and keep getting better, I think they're going to really be pushing for a playoff spot this year.
So where does this go wrong? I think is a good question.
Sure.
Like it could go wrong if injuries occur, obviously, as you could say with any of these teams, right? If Paulo doesn't take like a bit of a leap, maybe. If Franz doesn't take a bit of a leap, maybe.
Not enough shooting is an
like
area looking for. Yeah.
But again, though, like you bring in Joe Ingles and you hopefully get, a few more minutes from Gary Harris, who only played like half the games last season, right? And Gary's an injury risk, obviously, but like, that probably matters. But like, instead of Bol being out there shooting 26% from 3 and, Caleb Houston shooting 33% from 3 and Chuma Okeke, when he's not right, shooting 30% from 3, you're replacing those minutes probably with guys like Joe Ingles and, hopefully getting more minutes from Gary Harris, right? So the spacing is the right call. The spacing is where it could go wrong, I think, for sure. But they've done an okay job, at least, of giving themselves a chance in that regard.
Yeah, and what helps is that they can invert it a little bit with their front court, that Carter can shoot or is at least respected enough as a shooter. Banchero plays a real face-up style as their 4. And hey, maybe we even see some small ball 5 for Paolo in the regular season for Orlando this year. I think they went to that like 4% of his minutes, according to Basketball Reference, were allocated at that spot. We might see an increase of that as they have more competent perimeter players and wings around him. I'm really excited to see what they look like.
I agree. I'm excited to see what they look like more than anything. You bring up Paulo backup center minutes. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a really, really interesting idea for them. And I hope they kind of go about that at some point this year. Okay. Last team for me, the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans are just an easy one. Like, how does this go right? Zion Williamson. If Zion Williamson is in shape, and man, some of those photos that are circulating on Muscle Watch Twitter right now, Adam hates the summer.
I don't. I do. I am no fun Spinella. I don't watch pickup runs. I don't watch workout videos. I just swipe through it and say like, "Oh, it's good for you, buddy."
Do me a favor and at least look at the thumbnail I posted today of the photo of Zion like working out right now.
All right, hang on here. Let's see what I can get. Oh, he looks like me in the mirror.
Yeah, right.
Oh, sorry, that's Chet. I'm looking at Chet. Yeah, that's what I look like in the mirror. Yeah.
What can you do? He looks enormous. Like, and like not in a bad way. He looks like he has been in the gym for a month and a half now without leaving. If he's that guy and can stay healthy, the Pelicans are a top 4 team in the West. If he's that guy, you have if he is healthy and he is like in shape, he is a top 10 player in the NBA. Zion Williamson.
Mm-hmm.
Truly.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have the right pieces around him. They've got shooters. They've got positionally versatile guys on defense. They've got different lineups and constructions that they can put out there. They've got a creative coach who knows how to make that stuff happen.
Yeah.
When Zion is healthy and all of those pieces are together, I'm really high on this Pelicans team. I'm 100% there with you. How much do we trust that, though?
Not enough.
Yeah.
Not enough. If Zion, how many games does Zion have to play for the Pelicans to pass the play-in tournament?
Oh, to bypass it?
Yeah.
Honestly, probably close to 70.
I would have said 60. So
Okay.
yeah. So you said close to 70. So
Yeah.
you're saying in the 60s. I would have said 60.
Yeah.
I think if Zion plays 60, and then you've Brandon Ingram stays healthy, CJ stays healthy, this team, I think, probably bypasses the play-in because Jonas is still, again, a top 15 center in the league. Brandon Ingram is a top 30-ish player in the league, 35-ish player in the league. CJ McCollum is what he is, right? He's a really versatile player who hopefully will be allowed to play a little bit more off ball this season. Like if Dyson Daniels can take a little bit more of that responsibility and some other guys, can step up and be more of a allow CJ to do what he does best off the ball, right? Frankly, if Zion can step up and play more on the ball, Brandon can step up and continue to play on the ball and stay healthy. Trey Murphy is awesome.
Yes.
Like Trey Murphy is a 6'10" dude who I think at some point is going to be the best shooter in the NBA. He's not there yet, but like he's going to be at some point, right? We kind of buy that.
He's close to it. I mean, he is automatic in standstill situations.
Like truly automatic.
Yeah.
Then you have Herb Jones, who's like a phenomenal defender. Like this team is just truly loaded with talent. And I wish I trusted them more. Like if they get 65 games from Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. Brandon Ingram, by the way, only played 45 last year. Like I feel like that piece of this also goes under the radar here.
Yep.
Like they won 42 games with Zion Williamson playing 29 and Brandon Ingram 45. If you get 45 more games from Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson, this is like definitely a playoff team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you in that regard. The one worry roster construction wise for me has always been rim pressure and guys who can live in the lane when Zion's not on the floor. And we saw that as an issue for them last year. They just were very jump shot heavy in some regard. I think CJ McCollum, as competent as he can be at playing with the ball in his hands, is best served being more of that true combo guy who can play off ball and on ball and kind of pick his spots to create with it in his hands. They need a little bit more rim pressure for me, maybe with their second. Like I know Jose Chevy Alvarado is pretty good as a backup guard, but he gets lost amongst the trees a little bit on the interior. Like you just need a little bit more juice to me to be able to collapse defenses.
The other piece of it that I think went just like so far under the radar, especially in the second half of the season for the Pelicans last year. Where do you think the Pelicans finished defensively in the league last year?
Oh, I'm going to guess this one. 13?
They finished 6th.
Really?
In defensive rating last year.
Good on them.
Like their defensive infrastructure by the end of the year was really strong. Like I thought Jonas was really quite good defensively last season. Herb Jones was obviously a stud defensively. Trey Murphy, I think, continued to take another leap defensively last season. Alvarado is really good defensively. Larry Nance is really good defensively. Dyson Daniels is like unbelievable. It's just that he needs to have enough offense to stay on the court in a real way. Like this team has all of the pieces to be a top 4 team in the West.
Yeah, I don't trust. I really don't. And I look at that top of the West and I see like Denver and Phoenix, like pencil those two in there without a doubt. I still trust Golden State a hell of a lot more than this team, even through the regular season.
Through the regular season, if this team is healthy, I think they can be better than Golden State. It's not worth relying on. Like they're not going to stay healthy. Yeah. So it's like a total fucking joke that I'm saying this, right? They're not going to stay healthy, but like if they do, they can absolutely make the playoffs and like they can be better than Golden State, I think, in the regular season. I don't know about the playoffs, probably not in the playoffs, but like in the regular season, they can be better than the Lakers. They can be better than the Clippers. Like them in Memphis, I think is like an interesting conversation with how long Ja Morant is going to be out. That's also like the interesting piece of this. I think Memphis's infrastructure with Taylor Jenkins and Jaren Jackson and Desmond Bane and everything that organization has done to build such a strong culture around Ja Morant. I think that they probably still end up being a playoff team, but Ja Morant is missing the first 25 games of the season here. We don't know. I would assume they stay afloat during that time, but there's more risk with the Grizzlies than there has been in the past, let's say, maybe.
Yep. And again, you never know what the health of the Clippers is going to be or how that situation plays out. There are Damian Lillard and James Harden ripple effects that we can still be feeling the effects of throughout the fringes of the Western Conference playoff race. There's a lot that can still be determined. And while I agree with you, the ceiling is super high for a Pelicans team when they put it all together. I just, it's a really high bar to claim for me to go all the way into the top four.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like I'm honestly very, very interested to see what this all looks like. I don't know what to expect here. And look, like I think Desmond Bane's a stud. I think Jaren's a stud. Like, I don't know. Like the Pelicans were really fucking good early in the season. Like they were great. Like Cosmo brings up a good point. They were in first in the West before Zion got hurt. I don't know. If Zion's healthy, this team's going to be really, really good. They're going to be really, really good. Okay. The last thing, that's our 5. If we had to rank those teams 1 to 5 in terms of confidence intervals, how would we rank them?
I would
make the final 8, not just the play-in.
Okay. Final 8. I'd go Dallas 1, unequivocally.
Okay.
Indiana 2. And then I probably go Oklahoma City, New Orleans, and then Orlando.
I would go Dallas 1. I think I would go New Orleans 2. It's funny because like to make the playoffs is a different conversation than how good I think these teams are.
Right.
Like
that's right.
I have more faith in Dallas, like to make the playoffs, whereas I think that New Orleans' upside is probably higher than Dallas's.
Yeah, and I think the 3 teams in the West are better teams than the 2 in the East, but I think the bar to clear for making the playoffs is lower in the East. So that's why Indiana is 2 for me.
I think I'm going to still say Dallas, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, Indiana, then Orlando.
Wow.
And the only reason I say that is because I'm trying to like figure out, okay, if Luka gets hurt, how fucked is Dallas? Dallas is like totally fucked, right? But Dallas might actually be less fucked if Luka gets hurt than Indiana is than if Halliburton gets hurt.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. They have Indiana only's got one guy who can play at an all-star level. Yeah.
And like if Miles Turner, who does actually miss games from time to time, like if he misses time, their defense will fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think Orlando 5 and Dallas 1 is where I'd be on the confidence intervals.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think I'd still have New Orleans 2, and I think I'd go Oklahoma City 3. It's hard for me to separate it. Like it just kind of is. The reason Oklahoma City over Indiana for me is that I think if Shea gets hurt, you still have Giddey, Jalen, everybody else to be able to take on the on-ball slack, particularly. If Halliburton gets hurt, I don't think that Indiana has any of that.
Yeah, again, very fair. Very, very fair.
And by gets hurt, I mean like misses 30 games.
Yep.
Not misses the whole season. If any of these teams' best players miss the whole season, they're definitely fucked.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
No question.
Let's talk a little bit at the end here about TyTy Washington. TyTy Washington was released by the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's had a circuitous offseason already, going from Houston to Atlanta to Oklahoma City. And I kind of just wanted to talk a little bit about how quickly things can change in the NBA, and just how teams value these late first round picks. Like, they don't. And I think we need to recognize that first and foremost. But like, also, I want to say, like, for the record, like, TyTy was quite good in the G League last year.
Really good. Really, really good. Glad you brought that up. 23, 6 assists, 3 turnovers, like 2-to-1 assist to turnover rate with that scoring ability, 1.4 steals. He was very good in the G League last year. This is so much about where the NBA game is headed, just positionally, and what it values from a roster construction standpoint from smaller players. Because guys like TyTy Washington, I think another player I'd want to bring up within this conversation, this guy like Kennedy Chandler, who was drafted the exact same draft class and didn't even make it all the way through his first season. Top 40 pick, and Memphis ran into some roster crunch stuff with Brandon Clark and Steven Adams both getting hurt. And Kennedy Chandler's the first guy on the chopping block. Like, when you are a younger guard and a smaller guy, your margin for error is almost non-existent now to show that your feel is elite to overcome some of the lack of versatility that you bring to the table. When you're a smaller guard, you handcuff your team in your roster construction to play certain styles of basketball. You need the ball in your hands. Defensively, you can't switch as much. You've got to do different things. If you do get switched on to somebody and have to be, worked around off ball, you've got to be so good in order to deserve playing time despite all of those things.
And well, you're just replaceable at the end of the day.
You're very, very replaceable. And as we're looking around the league for guys like TyTy and Kennedy Chandler, like, where will they land next? Like, oh, why didn't anybody just want to acquire TyTy Washington this summer? It's a young guy who's still got a lot of upside to try to invest in. It's because no other roster around the league has the flexibility to take on another one of these kind of smaller players who would hamstring you in that regard. Like, when push comes to shove, I'd rather go with one of the veteran guys like a TJ McConnell or an Ish Smith that's out there, because I know he can already do it.
So, like, you bring up, Kennedy Chandler, and like, I'm sure Memphis, like, I know that Memphis, like, they wanted to keep Kennedy.
Yeah.
It's just they ran out of roster spots because of their big situation, and they had to sign Kenneth Lofton Jr. in order to make it work for them in the playoffs and like have cover in case of injury. Here's the thing. If you're Kennedy Chandler and you're Memphis this offseason, like, Memphis can just go out and sign Sharif Cooper. Not that different. They can go out and sign Jared Butler. Not that different. They can go out and sign, TyTy Washington. Not that different. They could go, I'm sure that they could trade for Malachi Flynn probably, right? Not that different. Like, the number of replacement options that are available for you on the market, if you are a small guard, is just so much larger than if you're a big or if you're a wing, right? Cosmo brings up the backup guard is becoming the NBA's version of running backs in the NFL. Yeah, the smaller one. I agree. It's just really, really hard, I think, for guys like TyTy to end up in positive situations unless they're just ready to go from the jump. And if you kind of look through the last, let's go with starting with the 2020 NBA draft, right? Look at how these teams have valued second round pick or late first round picks, let's call them.
Sure.
RJ Hampton went 24th overall. His second contract was for like $490,000. So not enough, not a lot, right? Peyton Pritchard, like, it seems like going to get an extension from Boston, right? And I have no idea where his career goes after this. And I think Peyton's okay.
And he's asked out of Boston before. And I think that the lack of ability to find homes for him is indicative of the market for guys like him right now.
Yeah. Udoka Azubuike is on a two-way right now. Didn't make it all the way through his rookie scale deal. Malachi Flynn, I have no idea what ends up happening with him. Tyrell Terry had some issues at 31 overall. I hope Tyrell is doing well. He's on a two-way now, or he was on a two-way for his second deal, is out of the NBA now. Vernon Carey, 32nd overall. Second deal was for 100,000. Didn't make it all the way through his deal. Daniel Aturu, second deal was for 50,000. Didn't make it all the way through his first contract. Teo Maladon, second deal was a two-way. Didn't make it all the way through his deal. Tyler Bay, 36th overall, was never on anything more than a two-way, I believe. That's, basically from 24 to 36 in the 2020 draft. You go to 2019 now. Ty Jerome got all the way through his rookie deal and, is now on a guaranteed deal for, real, decent money. Nasir Little got a second contract, but he got 28 million on a second contract. Dylan Windler somehow got all the way through his deal. He's on a two-way now, though. Didn't get a second deal. Fiondu Kabengele did not get all the way through his first deal. Second deal was for $100,000. Jordan Poole, great hit. Keldon Johnson, great hit. Kevin Porter Jr., great hit, I think. But then you get to 32, Keze Apala, $250,000 second deal, didn't make it all the way through his first contract. 33, Carson Edwards, didn't make it all the way through his first contract, $75K guaranteed. Bruno Fernando, Didi Luzada did not make it all the way through their first deals. Bruno has done well and has made $10 million guaranteed through his career somehow. Good for Bruno. But, these picks at the turn of the first and second rounds, you go back to, the 20, let's go here to the 2018 draft now. So we've gone 2020, 2019, 2018, 28th overall, Jacob Evans didn't make it all the way through his first deal. John Musa did not make it all the way through his first deal. Omari Spellman did not make it all the way through his first deal. Elliot Kobo did not make it all the way through his first deal. Melvin Frazier at 35 did not make it all the way through his deal. Kyrie Thomas at 38 did not make it all the way through his deal. Guys like Musa, Evans, and Spellman, I don't even think they got real second opportunities even. So it goes quick. If you're not ready to play from the jump and you are not a top 20 player in your draft class, it turns. And TyTy was a guy that people thought would go in the top 20 when he declared. So I get why he declared. I don't think he necessarily made a mistake declaring. It's just that it goes quick. It goes really quick.
Yep. And the margin for error for guards is particularly small.
The margin for error with guards is very, very, very small. And you have to be careful, especially with the NIL opportunities that are out there in college basketball right now. It behooves you to wait until you're ready to come to the NBA now, I think. Truly. It's hard for TyTy Washington to turn down a guaranteed, what is TyTy going to make guaranteed on this deal? $4.5 million. TyTy is going to make $4.5 million no matter what happens now. He'll net $2.2 million. It's hard to say that TyTy made some egregious mistake, I think. But it goes quick. And I would behoove prospects, agents, people like that to just be aware of how quickly it can turn for you. TyTy Washington is a prime example of how it can go.
Yep. And even those guys who fall, it's hard for them to make it. Trey Jones ended up going 40th overall, and he just signed a second contract after being a pretty good player and spot starter for the Spurs most of the year, and he's not even making that much money. Sharif Cooper, unbelievable feel and just set the G League on fire last year. Can't get guaranteed contract opportunities after going in the second round. It's really, really hard. And yes, there is a difference between being 6'3" in TyTy Washington and being 5'11" in Sharif Cooper. There's a very real difference in that regard.
Yeah.
But the bar is so high for these undersized guards to clear. It's really, really tough to stick in today's NBA.
Yeah, especially look Sharif Cooper averaged 23, 7, in 3.5 rebounds a game. He shot 35% from three each of the last 2 years, which, by the way, Sharif Cooper shooting, that was the big concern that a lot of people had. And I wasn't quite as high on Sharif as some people were. I think I had him at like 29 or so. Like I liked the upside swing as potential, but like I had him I had him late first round.
Sure.
Here's the number for Sharif. Sharif averaged 4.5 turnovers per game last year. You can't do that. Like in the G League, you can't do that. You can't do that in the NBA, to be sure, but like you can't do that in the G League. That's where the leap needs to come for him. Like that's where Kennedy Chandler has to be consistent and reliable. You have zero margin for error if you are a small guard now. Truly, like you have zero margin for error, and the way that like that bears itself out on the 2023 or 2024 draft, right? Like, like Isaiah Collier is really good. Isaiah Collier has very little margin for error, even being like 6'3" and being physical. Like that dude plays a physical brand of basketball. But the bigger one to me is like DJ Wagner, like has very, very little margin for error in a way that I think people have not recognized.
Totally agree with that. Like, there are always going to be like Darius Garland types who are just so skilled and impactful that they're going to overcome a lot of these trends. And hopefully you hit on a guy like that when you take him earlier in the draft. But it's becoming harder to do that, to justify spending an earlier draft pick on those guys. And B, if you take a later draft pick on them, they've got to produce earlier in their career. You don't have the time and flexibility to really wait for them to play through some of that stuff. So I think the DJ Wagner one is a great call. Like, I know you and Bryce Simon talked about Elliot Cadeau on the last podcast. Like
Elliot has like no margin for error. He is 6'1", like 170 pounds. And I love the way that dude plays.
Love him.
Like, epitome of an awesome floor general, really great point guard. He has zero margin for error. He has to improve as a shooter this summer if he wants to be a one and done in like a real way.
100%. Like I loved Judah Mintz at Syracuse last year, but same category of kind of position and athleticism type. Jackson Shellstad at Oregon, like to some extent.
Another guy that I love, by the way.
Love Jackson Shellstad in the way that he runs an offense and can do so many different things. Unbelievably creative passer. But the margin for error just isn't there. Like as scouts, we have to look forward and try to apply what matters in today's NBA, what wins in today's NBA, and adjust our boards and our rankings as a result of that. Elliot Cadeau and Jackson Shellstad are probably two of the best 20 freshmen in college basketball, and that doesn't seem like a controversial opinion.
And I'll give you another one, Aiden Holloway. Like Aiden Holloway was incredible Hoop Summit week, and NBA scouts were just like, he's so small. Like I'm telling, like Aiden Holloway was awesome. Like I was there, like he killed dudes, and he's 6 foot tall. And it's just like, well, he has to be Trae Young. Like that's the thing. Like you either have to be Trae Young or Darius Garland or somebody like this, which means there is a pathway for these guys. Like you can be that small and be okay. The next pathway down is like, it's like Monte Morris, right?
It's Sharif Cooper. We're seeing it.
Well, there's like a middle ground, I think,
between
those guys. Like Monte Morris, Jose Alvarado is like a really good, backup point guard. There is a middle ground, I think is worth saying. And like Jalen Brunson, I think is a great question here from Connor Andrews. I loved Jalen Brunson pre-draft. I had him as a first rounder. Like, how can you predict that kind of production? There are two things that I think you need to be able to do if you're small. Jalen Brunson does both. He is an elite decision maker. Jalen Brunson is probably one of the 10 smartest players in the NBA right now, like on planet Earth. And you have to be able to shoot. And Jalen can really shoot and has unbelievable touch and everything. You have to have not just good touch, but like elite touch. And you have to be able to make incredible decisions at an extremely excessively high level.
Yeah, and Brunson is a unique player in that like he's strong and a different type of athlete for somebody of his size. Like he is smaller, but he is very
Yeah.
stocky and he always stays on balance in everything he does. Like his footwork, his touch, his decision making, his craftiness is kind of off the charts. But those players that you mentioned, right? Jalen Brunson, Monte Morris, I forget who was the other player that you had mentioned there. Jose Alvarado. Yeah.
Jose Alvarado,
Jose
Javon
Alvarado.
Carter is another one.
Yep.
Like there are a few. Like there is a middle ground.
So
in terms
do you
of
know
this.
what all of those players have in common?
Go ahead.
Multi-year college guys.
A lot of them are multi-year college guys. Yeah.
They cut their teeth and they showed that their feel and their skill and all of those things are off the charts. They got the reps that they needed to improve to get to the point where they can come in and help an NBA team right away before they were on that rookie contract. I think that's the path for these younger guys. Like, don't be so quick to say, hey, I averaged 15 and 5 as a freshman. It's time for me to go chase the NBA. Like, there's so much more value in trying to maximize that year after year after year in college, and then try to take the same pathway that Jalen Brunson took.
And the reason for that is if you're a small guard, it's just really fucking hard to get reps in the NBA. The NBA is the best guys in the world. And even in the G League, right? Like in the G League, you're fighting against dudes that made their all conference team every single year, almost like a lot of the time, right? It's hard to find those reps. It's hard to like get the number of reps that you need in order to become confident in ball screens, in order to become, an unbelievable pull-up shooter, to work on your footwork. Like Seasons and Sloan brings up Marcus Sasser, right? Like Marcus Sasser got the reps. Like that's a big factor. Like I believe in Marcus Sasser. He got the reps.
Davion Mitchell, same thing. He got the reps and completely transformed who he was as a player and prospect. But like,
and by the way, though,
and defend.
Here's what I would tell you about Davion Mitchell, though, too. Davion Mitchell, I think, is a good example of a guy that maybe did not get the reps, actually, because his defense is unbelievable. Like his defense will keep him in the NBA for a while, but like didn't play a lot his first year at Auburn, then was at Baylor for 1 year. And like got the reps at Baylor for 1 year.
Yeah.
But he struggles to run an offense in the NBA.
I should say he got time to continue to play and show his value and his worth for an NBA team. Like pick and roll reps, opportunities to run an offense, those definitely matter. And to me, that comes down more to your choice in a college than it does anything else. But yeah, there's a lot of these guys who I'm seeing who are making it as undersized guards, and they're the ones who are older. They're more polished when they come into the league, and they have one clear identity, if not both, of shooting and defense.
And look, there are these preternatural guys, right? Like Darius Garland, Trae Young, you can point them out, right? Ja Morant's one, right? Like he was 2 and done at Murray State and really only got to like fully run the show 1 year. Because they had John Stark, if I remember correctly, that first year where he was there, where he was like the OVC player of the year, if I remember correctly, in that league, and Morant was next to him. Like there are these like just unbelievably gifted dudes, and maybe DJ Wagner, maybe Elliot Cadeau, maybe we find out that some of these guys are that, but who those guys are in college is my point. Like, you knew it. So I don't know. And again, like Ryan D brings up like TyTy's combine measurements and stuff. TyTy is a slightly different deal here. Not like an enormously different deal, but it's slightly different with TyTy. TyTy needs opportunities and reps. And again, TyTy was really good in the G League this year. It's just that he needs to now find a home, and things change so drastically quickly in today's NBA. They really do.
They really do. And again, to close the loop on the 2024 guys here, like I am still hopeful that an Elliot Cadeau or a DJ Wagner and Isaiah Collier can turn into that clear cut, hey, it doesn't matter. He's so damn good. We've got to get this guy anyway and kind of live with it. Like I want those guys to be that. But history is any indication. That's a really high bar to clear. And it's becoming decreasingly a risk that NBA teams are going to want to take.
Yeah. So like guys that qualify for this year, DJ Wagner, Elliot Cadeau, Jared McCain is another one, I think, in a pretty real way. Aiden Holloway for sure. El Marco Jackson's probably a little bit more physical, I think, than these guys.
Such a good athlete.
And just like is a total freak show athlete. But Rob Dillingham is one for sure. Jackson Shellstead, you brought up. I think that's a really good name for sure. Jeremy Fears at Michigan State. DeDon Thomas going to UNLV. Whatever happens with Mikey Williams, who knows there. Like, this is a class that actually has a lot of these guys. And if you wonder why they aren't showing up on draft boards, this conversation is kind of why.
110%. And again, that doesn't mean we don't love them as players. Prospects and players are different things. In some regard, they're different things.
They are. Okay. Adam, do you have anything else you want to get off your chest before we leave?
Sam, did you watch any good movies recently? I haven't had a movie talk with you in a while.
I have watched a lot of good movies recently, Adam. I'm up to like 50 on 50 2023s now.
All right. Hit me with something I got to watch here the next week or so before I get back to school.
Okay. What should you watch? Oh, Blackberry. I thought Blackberry it's one of my favorite movies of the year so far. It's Glenn Howard. Do you watch It's Always Sunny?
Yeah, of course. Of course I do.
Yeah. It's Glenn Howerton like doing Dennis, but bald and like in a drama.
Oh, because of the implication?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow.
It's like he's actually doing the business version of the Dennis system in this movie.
What's it on? What can I stream it on then?
I rented it. It was like $5 to rent. It was so good. Like the writing is impeccable. I'm dead serious. Like there's a real chance I like campaign for Glenn Howerton to get like a supporting actor nominee for the Oscars this year.
I want to watch.
I think he is unbelievable in this movie. The writing is amazing. There's a scene in this movie that is so completely off the fucking rails. And oh, by the way, while I'm wearing a Penguins hat, you will see why the Penguins matter in this movie. And there's a scene at the end of this movie that gave me more joy than any scene will give me in any movie all year. And you guys will understand why when you see it.
It hit you right in the Inzer heart.
Yes, 100%. I think have I talked about Oppenheimer on the pod yet? I think I have. Oppenheimer is incredible. Like the best movie I've seen all year for sure. I'm trying to think of like movies that you could just like watch with Kayla, like on like streaming or something like that.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of streaming and movies and TV shows now. She's for people that don't know, my wife's 35 weeks pregnant, so we're doing a lot of staying at home and doing nothing.
Yeah. I really liked How to Blow Up a Pipeline that I think is on Hulu now. Really liked that. You should just that's just like an interesting movie to watch. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is out now. That's like one of the most visually creative movies I think I've ever seen, just straight up. Asteroid City is on Peacock. If you like Wes Anderson, you will like it. I had a good time with it. The Manziel doc, have you watched that?
No, but I've heard everything that was basically in it because I sat with our football coaches for like 2 hours the other day.
The Manziel doc is, I don't know what to think about it. It just felt like content to me more than like an actual film, which sounds rude maybe, but like, it just was like, oh yeah, like Johnny's willing to do this documentary, and Johnny Manziel is like super open for the most part and is like pretty transparent and honest and like is unabashedly who he is in it. And when he's on camera, it's compelling in that way. But I don't know if it like totally hung together for me as like a final product that is like trying to say something about like his career, trying to say something about, you know, the way that fame corrupts or like anything. Like I don't know what to think of it.
That's how I felt about the Alabama sorority like Rush documentary that came out several months ago.
I have not watched that yet. Is that good?
It's okay. It's okay. My wife works for a sorority, so I watched it with her. She was super into it. Like maybe it's just not my thing, but I thought it was okay. In terms of like football stuff right now, like you better believe what I'm watching.
Oh, the New York Jets.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to deal with you with the Jets all year.
Super Bowl or bust, baby. I'm all about it.
I love it. By the way, like I'm gonna have to like deal with you and my wife because Laura likes Aaron Rodgers quite a bit, or you know, did until some of Aaron Rodgers' many decisions. Yeah. We still like Aaron Rodgers though in this house. We understand the flaws of the man, but we are still in. The last one. Have you watched Cocaine Bear?
No, I haven't watched. I don't know if I can physically bring myself to sit down and do like that. Just screams Snakes on a Plane to me, and I don't know if I can do it.
It's a little bit of that, but it's pretty fun.
All right,
and it's like if you have Peacock, it's free.
I
like,
don't. I don't.
Yeah, there are ways to get. There are ways to get Peacock for free. Like just by like they have like partnerships with like certain, you know, companies that you can like, you know, do like a dual thing with. Yeah, interesting movie. Very interesting movie.
All right, I'll put that on the short list then.
Yeah, that's all I've got. That's I'm up to like 50 now. I like was going through and like trying to list out my favorites of the year so far. I've only got like 11 or 12 that like I'm like really, really, really into. But I would say Blackberry is definitely in my top 5 so far. Yeah. Oh, have you seen John Wick 4 and Extraction 2?
Neither of those. I haven't seen the firsts or the thirds or any of the versions of those.
I had a great time. I've had a great time with the Extraction movies. I get it that they're kind of stupid. It's basically like Chris Hemsworth is a dude who goes and gets shit done, right? Who goes and like has to rescue people and things. And it's an action movie and the action's really well done. I would suggest the Extraction movies. They're on Netflix for free if you have Netflix.
I do. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So those are good ones. Seasons and Sloan asks, any good book recommendations? I've read 2 books this weekend. So I have quite a few good book recommendations right now. I read Islands of Abandonment by Cal Flynn. That was recommended to me by Katie Heindel. Shout out Katie. I really, really liked it. I thought it was really good. It's like about how in these places that humanity has abandoned due to nuclear disaster, like in Chernobyl or in, war-torn parts of the world that just like don't have the ability to continue, housing people, how the earth has like kind of reclaimed them and like different species have come in and, taken over in different ways. It's a really interesting book on conservation and like how earth continues to like build and rebuild. Really, really interesting book. I found myself talking to my wife about it a lot. And then right now I'm reading the Jane Harper books because I'm like back into fiction. I try to go fiction and nonfiction, like one fiction, one nonfiction, basically. I read The Dry, which is like the biggest Australian fiction book to come out in the last decade. That was a movie with Eric Bana. If people have seen like trailers and stuff and like have seen the movie, I read that. That was really good. I'm reading the second one right now as well.
All right. Yeah.
Trying to think.
Not many book stuff from me. Like I'm really boring. I read only like leadership and coaching and like basketball stuff. I don't have many hobbies outside of this. There was a really informative one. It's called NIL for All. It's booked as this 30-minute guide to learning everything about the NIL and how it's transforming things. I think that's a necessary read for everybody within the basketball and kind of collegiate sports industry right now. Quick read, like 60 pages, but really informative and smart for where things are heading and how to stay abreast of everything. And then a lot of like what to expect when you're expecting. It's an informative book. Yeah.
Yeah. You have responsibilities coming up.
I got that genre to read. Yeah.
I have time to read books, unlike you at this point. Adam, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, if anyone wants to follow me on Twitter, and yes, I'm going to keep calling it that, go follow me at @theboxandone_. Milos Uzan, big breakdown video coming out tonight, article and companion coming out tomorrow. Got a top 30 grade on him. I really enjoyed watching him play. Excited for the potential of what he could become. And other than that, I'm just going to enjoy my final week of vacation here before getting back to the grind of the school year.
Yeah. That's all good. Shout out to Spain. Shout out the Matildas, by the way. The Australian women's national soccer team. Had a great time watching the Matildas over the course of the last month. One of the most fun teams. One of the teams I've like jumped on the bandwagon of hardest. Like Laura and I are now officially like in the market to try and figure out what WSL team we need to support.
Oh.
Yeah, we're in. We're trying to decide basically between Chelsea and Arsenal, but we're also, seeing if some of the Australian girls get picked up by WSL teams as well after the tournament. So we're in the market if anybody has recommendations there. The last thing I want to note here, Adam brought up the NIL book, right? And I tweeted about this over the weekend. I was pretty annoyed by it. If you are a college coach, I'm begging you, like, please, truly, you guys are people that like have big audiences. You are people that recruits look toward. And I get it that like some of you have agendas in terms of not liking the transfer portal and not liking the fact that kids now have like autonomy and that there can be some unexpected consequences if kids transfer. And I think it's worthwhile to share those unintended consequences when they are accurate. I would just ask and beg anybody that is a college coach, do not blindly retweet these bullshit transfer graphics. Like, please. There is a graphic going around right now that is saying that 817 of the 1,815 D1 players that entered the transfer portal this year have not found a new home. That number is so fucking asinine and ridiculous as to not even be like, have common sense. Like, think about it logically. There is no way that number is plausible. Like, truly, there's just no way that number is plausible. And if you ask anybody within the space that like really understands this, like, for instance here, so like Tonia Dragna is someone that like is a former basketball coach who's now like, doing stuff like in the business world. According to his numbers, among these 1,821 players, only 493 have not found a new NCAA home. So a lot of these kids have transferred down to Division II, Division III, obviously. And a lot of kids do that. Like, a lot of kids are very happy in transfer specifically to go down to the Division II, Division III level because they want to play. They want to go and get new opportunities. Of the 493 that have not found new NCAA homes, 142 of these players are walk-ons. So, like, probably not good enough at the end of the day. Some of them are, some of them preferred walk-ons probably, but probably not good enough to be Division I players. Another 167 committed to NAIA and JUCO programs. So essentially, 309 out of 493, which is the actual number, not the bullshit 817 number, have found new homes. They're just not NCAA homes. And they're going to continue to play basketball in the way that they want to play basketball and that they're choosing to play basketball in. Or maybe they're walk-ons and they're not good enough to play basketball, right? A lot of walk-ons also transfer down, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So 167 out of 821, so 9% of players, not 45%, have not found a new home. And I would bet you, much like Tony thinks, that of those 167, there are a lot of weird circumstances, or there are some grade circumstances that have caused issues. Like, there are a number of contextual factors here. Coaches, I implore you, please do not share bullshit. Like, seriously, I saw at least double figures head coaches share that graphic without any context, without anything. I am begging you, do think like with any degree of problem solving or any sort of logical like problem solving in any way. That's my rant for today.
Yeah.
Like, please just think about this. Just think about it before you tweet. Okay. I get it that some people have agendas here. I'm not going to be immune to not knowing that. But like, seriously, a lot of college, like I saw a lot of college coaches tweet about this. And I saw other media members. Like, what are we, like, seriously, Paul B. and Cardi, like, how are you retweeting this? Come on, man. Like, think it through. Okay. That's the show for today. I had to get that off my chest. I was so mad when I saw like actual relevant people in this industry, like retweeting that without context, without thinking about it, without anything. Okay. Keep it locked here at the Game Theory Podcast. We will be back later this week with more. I have a show scheduled with Mark at some point, and then I have another guest that I'm super excited about that I have to call as soon as I get off the line here to try and get some things set up for this week. Really, really excited to share some work with you guys on the podcast coming up. Writing wise, I'm working on a couple of bigger projects with CJ Moore, and I will let you know when those go live. Until next time, we will talk soon. Bye.